Thank y'all for taking the time to join this morning. I want to open up to publicly acknowledge Coach Will Muschamp and his tenure here at the University of South Carolina. Since he got here in December of 15, he hit the ground running. And y'all are well aware of his passion, his dedication, his work ethic, and the culture that he created in a short period of time in this program. The next head coach will certainly inherit a very good situation as far as that's concerned. Over the years, I developed a great relationship personally with Coach Muschamp, which made yesterday even more difficult than maybe some circumstances would be. After 6 o'clock, we met yesterday, and as difficult as the conversation was, the class and dignity that he stands for was on display. I'm grateful for that. He also took the time to meet with his players yesterday. I met with the players as well, and President Caslin joined us. Coach Bobo has accepted the role as interim head coach. We met with the assistant coaches as we move forward. A difficult day yesterday for sure, but certainly a lot of bright spots in this program with Coach Muschamp's fingerprints on it. At the end of the day, the expectations to win games was coming up short, and that's what we're judged on. That's what our aspirations are. But life does become personal, and it doesn't make it easy in times like this. But I have a great relationship and respect for what Coach Muschamp did here, and we'll move forward, and he will support us, and he'll support the student athletes that he recruited here. He visited yesterday, as I said, and he'll be there for them, and I'm looking forward to, as we advance the program and know we're in a better place because of the time that he did spend here. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
David Cloninger with the first one.
Hey, Ray, thanks for doing this. I guess the biggest question is what happens with Will's buyout? Will he be paid that full $13 million and change?
I won't get into specifics on that, David, but as you probably know, and everybody has access to the contract, many of you have it, it's an annualized contract that could be adjusted by mutual agreement, but certainly that will be the case.
Gene Sapikoff.
Hey, good morning, Ray. What did you learn from the last football head coach search you made, and what will you do differently this time?
The last time we went through this, and our deputy athletics director, Charles Waddell, at the time was with me every step of the way, we did a very thorough vetting process and interviewed a lot of great candidates. Going back to ending up with Coach Muschamp taking over the program with his experience in the Southeast, in the Southeastern Conference, being a player, the programs that he's been a part of, felt that we really did a great job. And we will do the same thing going forward. It may be a little bit different process. However, it's important that you vet, you take the time. Sooner than later is better. However, it's important that the proper vetting is done and we get the right person to move this program forward.
What academic letter grade would you give yourself on the Will Muschamp hire?
That's a tough question, Gene. You know, I got a lot of C's in college, but C's get degrees. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, when I talked earlier about character and integrity, doing the right thing, work ethic, passion, dedication, student athletes first and foremost, he did all those things. There isn't something I could stand up here and tell you today that would be derogatory toward his tenure. It's a matter of we need to win more games, and that is very important in this program. We understand that you can't win them all, but our goal is to be successful at a level that we haven't enjoyed in recent years. So I don't know that it's important that I give myself a grade because you guys do a pretty good job of that.
Pete Acabelli.
Hey, Ray, was this decision made solely yesterday, or if the Gamecocks had won on Saturday, would Will still be the coach? And why mid-season and not at the end of the year?
Well, a lot of hypotheticals there, Pete, but I'll tell you the decision was made yesterday. It wasn't made in advance. There were some conversations that occurred. As you know, my direct report is President Bob Caslin, and we had some conversations on a number of occasions yesterday, and So the decision was made yesterday. You mentioned waiting till the end of the year. Is there ever a great time? I don't know that any time is more perfect than others. I know that as we move forward, there's a December 16th signing date. We also know that in January, the NCAA is likely, and I say likely because I don't know, they're likely to pass legislation where all students have a one-time transfer opportunity. That's in May. And I think the sooner we move forward in the program, the better that we will be. And if we do have a new coach, the desire would be to have one before the signing date occurs, that our commitments have an opportunity to exactly know their path going forward.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Ray. A couple of things. First of all, with Coach Bobo, will he have a chance to get the permanent head coaching job? And also, when you talk to him, what kind of specifics or goals did you set out for him? Was it just to keep everything together and keep it from falling completely apart, or are there some specific areas of improvement you'd like to see over these next 3 games?
Well, I don't coach football, and I have a hand in what goes on, but as an interim head coach, does that qualify for you to be in a position to assume a job permanently? When you're an interim head coach, that possibility does exist. And I said that to him yesterday and to the team and to some of the other coaches. So I have tremendous confidence in our staff that we have, and Coach Bobo's been in this chair before. He doesn't need any direction from me. I mean, he knows what he's doing, and he started his work yesterday, and I have confidence that he'll put us in a position to do our very best coming this Saturday against Missouri.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, Ray, thank you for doing this today. How much, or do you look at this at all internally as far as to what this hire will mean to your future with the university, and maybe even what this hire will mean to your life as an AD at the university?
I think I lost you a little bit toward the end, but if I don't answer your question correctly, you can ask it again. But I'm not worried about me. This is a weed deal, and if I'm defined in a particular way because of a hire or a hire that didn't get made, then so be it. But every single day, like our coaches, whether it's football, one of our other sports, we do the very best we can to move this university forward in athletics. Being a student athlete is first and foremost, and getting that degree. But you get a chance to play intercollegiate athletics, and if it becomes a negative situation with me, then that's something that I have to live with. But it's not about me. I'm not worried about me. I worry about we, and that's what we're going to be focused on.
And also, Ray, is there 2, 3, 4 things that are at the very top of your list as far as the credentials you're looking for in a new head coach?
Well, I think that there are some things that are very important. I think as we sit here today and we think about college football, and you guys are so very knowledgeable and you follow it closely, it may be a time that it's everybody lights up the scoreboard. The 10-7 games are distant memory. So I think that's important that we maybe get an offensive-oriented type situation, whether it's the head coach or a fantastic coordinator to move the needle in that capacity. But the other things we had with all the passion and dedication, and you just want to get the right person, the enthusiasm. You want guys to have fun, and it's a heck of a lot more fun when you're winning.
Colin Taylor.
Yeah, Ray, I guess what are the immediate steps for you in this coaching search? What's immediately next for y'all? And have you spoken to anybody, any agents, about filling the potential vacancy yet? Well,
the pursuit of filling this spot, and Coach Bobo's in charge right now. We've got games left on our schedule, and we don't know exactly what the bowl scenario will look like, but we still have opportunities to win. We know that you don't have to win 6 games to qualify. So there are a lot of things out there, and my job right now is to be dedicated 100% of the time in pursuing the head coaching position and filling it, like I said, as quick as possible. And there was a second part to that question, about whether I have not hired a search firm. There's been some conversations. There could be a possibility that would exist, but I have not done that formally.
Ben Briner.
Has anyone expressed any interest or reached out to you guys about interest in the job yet?
I've had some some third-party interest, as you would expect. But I haven't had dialogue with anyone. I wouldn't do that, and nobody has tried to get to me directly. But there certainly has been some interest. This is a very, very good job. This is a situation where, facility-wise, resource-wise, was about as good as it gets compared to anybody around the country and the SEC. And there are some great opportunities ahead.
Ben Briner.
Will President Caslen have a strong hand in sort of guiding this search? What kind of role do you sort of expect him to play? And what do you know about any searches he might have done in his time, might have helped with in his time in Army?
Well, I know that, at Army, he was involved with the hire of the latest football coach, and he has a tremendous acumen for football, having been a former player, and he loves the game very, very immensely, as many of you know. So I said earlier, he's my direct report, so he certainly will be involved. I'll be leading the search, and don't mistake that as somebody standing up here saying this is a one-man search committee. That's not the case. I'll be leading the search. Will we have a formal committee? We will not, but I'll be leading the search as we move forward to hire a replacement for Coach Muschamp.
Dick Cox.
With the buyout and with the economy the way it is, will it limit you in any way being able to go out financially and get the coach that you may want to get?
I would hope that it would not, but Dick, I think those possibilities could exist. They certainly have to be considered. I mean, we are in the midst of a pandemic. We have some financial pressures on us with our current attendance at football that's limited. This affected everybody. But at the end of the day, our department has operated financially secure for probably more than 15 years. And the debt that we inherited because of COVID and now changing football coaches will fall on the backs of the athletics department. It's not going to be anybody at the university. We'll certainly have a pathway that we'll try to have the resources to do what we need to do going forward. But at the end of the day, it will all come back to athletics. Will we be able to accomplish that next year or in 1 year? It will take us some time, but we will do that from the Department of Athletics.
Mike Yuba.
Right. I know a decision like this is a group effort, but how much say did you have in terms of making this decision right now, or did you kind of get a little pressure from either the Board of Trustees or President Caslen?
I'm not, Mike, I'm not one that I live under pressure. Back in the day, pressure was getting 3 outs in the ninth inning. So we have a lot of people that are very much engaged in this program from a lot of different levels, our donors, our fan base, and they're important to me, and I listen. But they put me in this position for a reason, to lead this department. And while sometimes people don't necessarily agree with me, that's okay. I'm one of those people that I think we all get better when we agree to disagree. But I never fail to state my opinion or how I feel about things, and that was the case going through this process. And we're here today, and we're moving forward.
Kyle Thomas.
Ray, obviously you and Coach Muschamp had a really good relationship. Can you tell me about what that conversation was like yesterday at 6 o'clock?
Excuse me. It wasn't an easy conversation because, you always hear life is personal. It is. And, despite the circumstances, you have to deal with the position that you're in. It was very honest and candid between us. It's about more than football. When you get down to it, a decision was made because of wins. It wasn't because of his character or the culture or anything. His class. It was about the bottom line, and that makes it hard. Makes it very, very difficult. But we had a great conversation. I can only imagine, how he might have been feeling, but I know what he said, and we embraced at the end of the conversation. And he wished me well. I wished him well, and he said, "I'll be here for you." And we I guess late last night we exchanged a couple of texts. So it's a great relationship. It's a very healthy relationship. I wish that the circumstances were different, but we're both grown men, and we have to deal with the reality that we're in.
Hale?
Hey, Coach. I was just wondering, as far as dealing with the COVID protocols and meeting face to face with people down the road, how will that be a challenge for you, or are these types of things more over the phone, right up until things get down to the nitty gritty at the end?
Good question. I think that I'm going to do my very best to be face to face in circumstances, but COVID is still here, and it seems to be somewhat aggressive right now. So that will not be ignored. I mean, there are opportunities that you can do Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever the case may be, where you can have some dialogue that works. But I've served on a couple other committees during this pandemic, and some have been via the Zoom, and others we've been able to get in a situation to meet in person, but not in an unsafe environment. So I would hope to be able to do that, but time will tell what we'll be able to do.
Josh Kendall?
Ray, just to make sure I'm clear on a few things, your goal will be to have a coach by December 16th, which is the start of that signing period?
In an ideal circumstance, I think prior to that would be what we would pursue. I think there are a lot of advantages to doing that, should it work out. We want to be in a hurry to do that, but we're not rushing. I mean, it's important that the right person's in the spot, and I'd like to do that. I think that it presents some opportunities on the recruiting trails, and it gives us an opportunity for our commits to know exactly what they're dealing with going forward. So it's a goal that I hope can be realized, but sometimes you don't hit all your goals.
And on the buyout, wasn't clear. You were saying it's possible that you would negotiate something different than what's in the contract language, or you feel like the buyout is what's in the contract?
The contract calls for an opportunity to negotiate an earlier circumstance if you both parties agree to it. Otherwise, it's an annualized contract. You probably have that, but that language is in the contract.
And how much were the finances specifically impacted by the pandemic a factor in this decision-making process? Was that a high hurdle for you and the president to clear in your minds, or did you feel like it was a decision that needed to be made regardless of those situations?
It was a discussion. Certainly, it's very important. I mean, we're facing challenges, in our department, like most athletic programs around the country are facing, with deficits going forward. And there was conversation about that. But we also felt like that we had an opportunity and a pathway financially to make a decision that we made yesterday.
Scott Eisberg?
Ray, wanted to know first if do you have to, has your coaching brain behind you? Like, I mean, obviously you were given a long time to kind of build a baseball program. Is it hard to kind of put that away when you know that in this day and age, it has to be done quick, wins have to happen quickly?
Scott, you bring up a really good point. I had this conversation, I think, late last night with one of my colleagues that, where we are today in this world with social media and instant gratification, the landscape has changed. Like it or not, we're living in a different era. And I think you all can remember back, some are not as old as others, but you can remember back where a coach was a coach for a long time. And unless something happened, they remained the coach. It's not the case anymore. It's a results-driven profession. It's not just at the level of football. It has trickled down to the Olympic sports as well. And that was never the case. It's all changed. We realize it, and it's a circumstance that we're dealing with. But we're just not in a place that, a coach gets a long tenure unless the success is off the charts.
With that being said, do you have to walk into any interview and tell a candidate, I need you to win right away. I need you to turn this around ASAP?
I don't know that I would I would approach it exactly that way, but I think that the people that we'll be talking to understand the dynamics of where college football is, especially in the Southeastern Conference.
Mitch Brown.
Ray, obviously, the players weren't as happy about this decision. Some of them voicing their displeasure on Twitter. But for you, as you move forward in this coaching search, how much does their opinion and their say, the current leaders on this team, have and factor into this next coaching decision?
Have a voice. As I said last night, I tried to plan and work as well as we possibly could internally with our senior leadership to make sure we got a chance to get in front of the players before there was any news that they had to hear it from another source. I think we might have accomplished that to a great extent, but what the players say and feel matters, and they'll be involved as we move forward as well. I think that's certainly important as we go through. They add a lot. I mean, no matter how old you are, people have something to offer. And it seems like I learn all the time from our student athletes, and you don't have to be 61 to learn. You can learn from a 21-year-old.
Phil Kornblut.
Yeah, good morning, Ray. After winning 9 games in the second year, what do you see as some of the reasons for the downturn in the program after that point? And excuse me, looking for the new coach, what things will you take from the last 3 seasons and apply towards this new coach to, avoid a situation where maybe there's an early high, but then things drop off? What things did you learn from watching this experience over the last 3 seasons?
I don't think, I'm not going to get into specifics because it would be like armchair quarterbacking, and you guys do that too. And I'm not being critical. That's part of what you do. So I'm not going to be critical, but it is a tremendous challenge to sustain success, regardless of whether it's football or another sport. That is the challenge. I think that a lot of good coaches have good runs. Being able to sustain it is something else, and you guys have seen it on the gridiron and in other sports, and that's it's an opportunity where you continue to build. I think you have to work extremely hard, and Coach Muschamp did. You have to work extremely hard when times are great, and when they start to get fractured a little bit, and it doesn't always work out perfectly, but that's the situation. I wouldn't go back and, like I said, you can armchair quarterback a little bit, but I never felt like that there was a time that, well, we won 9 games in year 2. We beat Michigan, so it's cruise control from here on out. He certainly didn't take it that way, and that wasn't the approach that I saw. So I don't know if there's a perfect answer.
David Connor.
Ray, a little bit off topic, but the game this weekend, Missouri had some COVID issues. Have you guys had any dialogue with the SEC about if that game is still on for Saturday night?
I had some interaction last night with Mizzou. The athletics director, Jim Sturk, and I were going back and forth. They were in a pretty good position. We all were tested yesterday. So, as you know, we're going 3 times a week, and we're hopeful. He was optimistic that they were in a good place. And, knock on wood, we've been in a pretty good pattern for a while now, and we hope to continue that. It was a strange Saturday where 4 games were postponed and only 3 played. So right now we're optimistic. We'll get our results back today, and then we'll go back in tomorrow.
Ben.
Ray, 2 questions. First of all, obviously, President Caslin's background is at Army. They are triple option teams usually there, but a lot of programs don't tend to want to do that. Would a triple option coach potentially be disqualified on that front just from that sort of schematic side? And also, how much of a weight do you put on being a sitting head coach versus potentially being a coordinator or potentially not having coordinating experience at all?
It's a good question. I don't think that I'm going to sit here and tell you that certain coaches that fit certain positions or run a certain offense or do things a certain way will be ruled in and ruled out. And I'll leave it at that. I wouldn't think you would see an option-oriented attack, but you never can tell. And what was the second part of your question, Ben?
how much, I guess, how much weight do you put on saying you need to go get someone who has head coaching experience versus someone who's potentially a coordinator, or versus someone who maybe doesn't have coordinating experience at all, but is just a strong.
It's not going to be a requirement that we'll go out and get a sitting head coach. I mean, certainly we'll take a look at some sitting head coaches, but there's other examples and other circumstances around the country that have worked extremely well, whether they were a coordinator or whether they were just a position coach. But being a sitting head coach doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's going to work out perfectly. You may have your own opinion, but there's examples to defy that as well.
Dick Cox.
Will the assistant coach's responsibilities remain the same the rest of the season, or will Coach Bobo have the authority to make any changes or reassignments?
Coach Bobo is the head coach as we move forward, and so that rests strictly on his shoulders. He's running the football team, and he's going to visit with you shortly.
And we have a half a dozen questions still in the queue, so that'll be a wrap. If you're not already in, we won't get to you. Mike Uva with the next one.
Ray, in the midst of a pandemic, do you feel comfortable that the buyout for Coach Muschamp will not impact the future of other programs being discontinued?
No plans, no situations that we're looking at that will impact the rest of our programs. There have been a lot of things that have gone on internally. We when COVID hit us back in March, we did budget cuts across the board. Every single program, we had furloughs, 20 days for some people, 10 days. We did pay cuts. Some of that will continue in 21 and 22, but it's not going to impact our programs. As I have expressed many times to our staff and our CFO, Jeff Tallett, that we certainly have to make adjustments. But the experience and the life of a student athlete, I do not want to be affected. So we're going to try to remain intact and do what we need to do to provide a great experience. So hopefully we have an opportunity to continue. Their runway is much shorter, so we have to do our very best to provide that experience for our men and women who play sports.
Thank you.
Colin Taylor.
Yeah, Ray, you mentioned trying to go after someone or looking at people with offensive backgrounds, but in terms of the interview process, what are you looking for in a coach when you interview him, and how hard is that to do maybe if you're doing those things virtually?
I don't think it's a perfect science. I mean, I've had an opportunity, and I spoke to one of the all-time great athletic directors in this country last night, and he was in the position for a long time, and he told me that he was only about 50% successful hiring coaches, which was a kind of a chuckle for me. I said, I thought you were like 100%. He said, the truth, it wasn't. So it's a challenge, but we're not going to lose. We're not going to lose that character integrity, the work ethic, the passion. Student athletes first mentality is in a different place than maybe many years ago. Those remain the same. But the student athlete experience and a person that would inject a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and fun into the program is very, very important. Yes, you want a knowledgeable coach, maybe a coach that can win right away if that's the case, but has the energy and the excitement to do that. I don't think that there's a perfect formula to be successful, but you got to hire the right person. And then what happens on the field, you hope is a great outcome.
Josh Kendall.
Ray, will Hugh Freeze be a candidate for this job?
I'm not going to speak to any particular candidates. Nobody is ruled out. We'll be looking at a long list of candidates, and that work started last night, and so at this point we'll consider a lot of different people. Now we're in the process of narrowing the list down.
How much of a factor will non-football, for lack of a better, non-on-field issues be in your coaching search?
Well, there are always an issue. I mean, you have to make sure that everything has to be vetted out. There's a vetting process in the SEC, also a vetting process with the NCAA, if that's what you're referring to. That's part of the protocol in hiring a coach, not just football, but other coaches as well.
Thank you.
Pete Acabelli.
Ray, what made Mike the right choice for interim Coach? Is it simply his experience? And given how close he is and loyal to Will, was he reticent at first to accept the challenge?
Well, you will have to speak with Coach Bobo more specifically, but having sat in the chair was very important, and the time that he spent here hasn't been a long time, but he certainly made an impact, I believe, from my experience on this team and on this coaching staff. So I thought that it was the right choice as we move forward, and when I asked him to do it, if he was comfortable, he accepted, and he has embraced it in a short period of time, and he's raring to go.
Kyle Thomas.
Ray, over the past 2 years with the football program, the highs have been high and the lows have been low. What can you say to instill some confidence in the fans regarding the future of the program?
It's important. It is important. I mean, I want to get back to the day that, when I leave my house in the mornings, I have to call to find out the best route to get to the stadium to avoid the traffic. I mean, I know that COVID threw us a curveball, but we want to get back to the time where there's, 80,000 in the stadium and the excitement, the energy, the pageantry is there, and the opportunity to win exists. I mean, as I said earlier, sustaining success is hard. There's going to be some highs and lows, but you want a team that excites our fan base. They're very important to us and our donors. It's a total situation. It's not just about one particular thing. It's about all those components coming together. So I look forward to getting back to that time. I did get up early this morning, saw some pretty good news on NBC with a vaccine coming that immediately turned to, if we can get through the early spring, maybe we got a chance to get back to some normalcy. And I would welcome that for our student athlete population and all of our coaches and you guys as well, to let's crank it up and get back to what we're used to.
The last question goes to Gene.
Ray, will you have any formal charge to interview some diversity candidates for this?
That certainly is important to us that we will do that, and there are a number of people that I'm looking at right now that's on that list that I referred to earlier. So that's a very important initiative.
All right, thank you, Coach Tanner.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.